Directive 8020 has perhaps the wildest ending of any Dark Pictures game so far. I know it's been out for a while now, and Until Dawn 2 was just announced, so no one really gives a shit anymore, but they really did something with this one particular ending. Getting this ending feels so wrong, like if you actually played the game this way, then you, my friends, need to get help. Anyway, I got this ending, so here's what making careless decisions and absolutely no use of the stealth mechanics in this one will lead to. Welcome aboard the Cassiopeia, a spaceship headed to a distant planet called Tau Ceti F because Earth is beyond saving and humanity, like always, needs somewhere new to destroy. In the year 2065, the mission is to survey the planet for views like this and see if humans can turn them into views like this. It takes 4 years to get there too, so most of the crew are sleeping it off while the unlucky sleep technicians, Parry Sims and Thomas Carter keep everything running. For plot reasons, however, a safety breach is detected, and through the security feed, they discover some rather mighty penetration, the kind that Bonnie Blue could only ever dream of. They suit up, do the good old spacewalk over there, and see up close that this isn't quite 1,000 guys in 12 hours, but more like the work of a meteorite. They notice a strange substance in there, but don't quite care enough to notice it growing, so they just seal everything up with some lasers and all is peachy. On the way back, Sims steps on a damaged tile where the air pressure sends her flying away, and Carter fails to pull her back in, so now she's lost out in space forever, the silly goose. Carter's depressed now, but there's no time to wallow in those feels just yet, big man, because a noise is heard from the engine room, so we need to investigate. Turns out Sims is alive and well, attacking Carter with an electric wedge tool and forcing him to run for his life. However, I don't want Carter to run from his opponent, so I have him turn back, only to find he has worse fight IQ than Michael Chandler when he's easily overpowered and brutally murdered by Sims. Moving on, we meet Brianna Young, the playable celebrity protagonist and cruise pilot, played by Captain Marvel star Lashana Lynch. She's helped out of her sleeping pod by Laura Isley, the team's second in command, who's now also doing the job of 2 sleep technicians. What a nerd. We say howdy to Commander Nolan Stafford, who may look like a mean nasty dude, but he's just cosplaying as old matey Olsen from Man of Medan. Next one to wake up is Noah Mitchell, the secondary pilot, who goes with Stafford to do some routine checks while Sims creepily watches over them. Isley and Young are running engine checks, and because of the meteorite damage, they need to cut power from either the ship's landing systems or fire control, redirecting it to the main reactor. The ship's AI recommends the landing system, but we don't need ChatGPT for everything. We can think for ourselves, instead shutting off fire control no matter how fatal the risks. Isley finds it strange that Carter and Sims weren't around to wake up the team, so she goes through the security footage and catches Sims acting all out of sorts. We're supposed to keep a distance and tail her quietly, but this isn't Assassin's Creed, so approaching her head-on is totally possible.
Surprise, motherfucker!
However, Sims runs away fast, and I mean really fast. Like one moment she's right in front of us, the next she just books it through the engine room in literally seconds. The cheeky bugger turns off the backup landing computer, locks the door before Isley can get through, and opens up the Cassiopeia's airlock because why not, I guess. Isley escapes through a nearby vent and sees floating drops of blood from a dark little corridor where she finds a very bloody, battered, and dead Thomas Carter. After that, we get a 22-hour flash forward, playing as the technical engineer Joseph Cernan, aka Salim from House of Ashes. He's being hunted down by Lamarcus Williams, billionaire CEO of the company that funded this entire mission. So yes, we have a billionaire who prioritizes space travel over fixing the Earth's problems. Anyway, Williams is locked behind this door, so he forces it open with a wedge tool, which then forces me into another stealth segment, but playing this game with a will to live is not how I roll. Instead, I just run towards him and get our boy in a very compromising position, taking us all the way back to the present time. Carter's now been moved into a sleeping pod, which is no easy task, as rigor mortis has made him stiffer than Prince Andrew at an under-16s volleyball match. Daniel then hops on the comms to inform everyone that the ship is about to enter Tau Ceti F's orbit as planned, so they ought to buckle in. Meanwhile, that growth we saw from earlier is now spreading further in the engine room and destroying the ship's flight control systems. As a result of this, Mitchell and Young's control panels lose connection as they plummet into the atmosphere faster than Stevie Wonder going down the stairs. The ship's landing system is also offline, so now it's less of a crash landing and more just a straight up crash. I choose to have Stafford reboot it, but the backup computer's disabled too, so that brave and heroic move was comically all for nothing. It's rather embarrassing for him, seeing as he fails to reach his seat on time and instead gets thrown into the windshield. After the crash, we check back on Cernan, who's helped out of his pod by the team's medic Samantha Cooper, along with the onboard science officer Zoe Anders. They're all trying to process the fact that Carter's just straight up been dumped here with no explanation, like not even a post-it note saying why he's dead and what's going on. For now though, it's time to wake the boss man, who's having a bad reaction to the process because his 4-year wet dream is ending on a cliffhanger. Soon afterwards, Isley shows up and awkwardly catches them up on everything like the meteorite situation, Sims' psychotic shenanigans, and of course the fact they're stranded on Tau Ceti F. Williams of course doesn't take it well, considering he put billions into this mission when that money could have gone towards more productive things, like food and shelter for the homeless or professional sports betting. He insists on speaking to Commander Stafford right away, and Isley's like, "Oh yeah, lol, there's still one more thing I need to tell you guys." She doesn't give the pilots any time to grieve over Stafford either, like the body's not even cold yet and she's already ordering them back to work. What a truly inspirational leader. Meanwhile, the others go to look for Sims, but instead come across a room completely overrun with that infamous growth. Cooper goes to collect a quick little sample so that Anders can later on study it and find out what they're all up against. Amongst the mess this mysterious lifeform is made simply by existing, we're shown a very human-looking head that's ready to take on a form of its own. As much as I'd love for it to shapeshift into Ana de Armas, I'm afraid that this is where the inspiration from John Carpenter's The Thing really kicks in. Flash forward 18 hours, where Cooper and Anders spot Williams gazing out the window while his face creepily refreshes itself. We're meant to sneak past him, but it shouldn't surprise you by now if I just have Cooper run over to Williams and flash him instead. Of course, I mean flash him with the torch, so then she gets caught, pops a cap in him, then runs off with Anders into the elevator, fast-tracking the scene back to the present time. With Stafford dead, Isley's the new commander now, awkwardly reminding everyone of the desperate situation they're in right now and how Sims is still at large. In order to subdue her, they first need to lock a few air vents and shut down some doors so they can catch her out like one of Chris Hansen's predators. Cooper and Young volunteer, only to be confronted by Sims, who throws herself and Young through a window and they fall deep into the reactor room. Another failed stealth segment later, the girls get into a nasty fight which leads to Sims getting the better of Young and painfully driving the wedge tool right into her eye. Luckily, Cooper comes to the rescue, and Young's pretty mad about losing depth perception now, so she channels the rage into locking in and throwing Sims over the railing. Young and Cooper also discover the meteorite from earlier, now having grown completely out of control and seeing that things are about to get much worse. Flash forward 17 hours, and this time it's Isley being hunted down by old matey Stafford, so of course we have to run. More like run right back to him, fail the QTE, and get this whole part over with in about 30 seconds. So, after the reactor room incident, Young gets her eye patched up while Anders observes the meteorite from camera view, confirming that it's very much an alien. Williams is fascinated by it, because where there's an undiscovered life form, there's a chance to exploit it for cheap labor while keeping yourself in the richest 1% of the world's population. A few hours later, Williams is seen shooting hoops in the gymnasium, but then he's also in the science lab with Anders and Cooper. Anders discovers that the growth changes cellular structures more frequently than Australia changes prime ministers, with the ability to clone any living thing it touches. Williams is still completely mesmerized by it, which Anders reckons is pretty sus, so Cooper helps her with a family-friendly prank by whipping up a quick little sedative to go with his coffee. So now he's going to sleep through everything while Anders digs through his computer, potentially having dirt on him if he hasn't deleted his browser history. Or at least so I thought, but instead of using the time wisely, she just performs freeze experiments on the growth sample, with Mitchell helping her control the liquid oxygen levels. Karma would get her back pretty soon though, because Williams locks her in the room right as the growth goes completely berserk and blows up its containment box. The pipeline Mitchell's controlling also explodes on him, leaving him trapped in a burning fuel room, while Anders on the other hand is at risk of freezing to death. Young can only choose to save one or the other, except I proceed to have her do absolutely nothing, so instead Cooper has to step up for her. Mitchell finds Williams totally unfazed by the fire hazard and everything, especially when he catches fire himself. He's really out here looking like the Human Torch, right until ragdolling to the floor and dying instead. Anders nearly dies in the cold until her bestie swoops in to save her right on the nick of time. I can't say the same for Mitchell though, who also catches fire while Cernan watches from the security room, trying to comfort him in his last moments with good vibes, but that doesn't really work when someone's being cooked alive. Speaking of Cernan, he finds the rest of the crew who are all pretty confused to see Williams waking up from a nap. Williams is also confused, especially when they all throw him in a contained cell to run some tests and make sure it's really him. They also see through the security feed that Sims is heading to hydroponics to raid some marijuanas and destroy the CO2 scrubbers while she's at it. This could see them run out of oxygen in a matter of hours, so Cooper volunteers to go in there with Isley, guns loaded and locked in. The girlies make it to hydroponics, seeing all their nice grown crops completely swarmed with the growth, so unfortunately that Blue Dream hybrid is totally done for. Cooper is then confronted by her own creepy mimic, and the same thing happens to Isley. Isley's mimic gives her quite a thrashing and does a real number on her, throws her down into the lower decks, and then transforms into this big ugly Dead Space looking creature. She fails to sneak past it, fails the QTE which injures her, so then Cooper has to blow her own head off right before coming in clutch to save Isley. Isley and Cooper return with everything they've just seen, convinced that the Williams in that cell is not the real deal. Williams does indeed pass the scan, but then an emergency alarm is raised, so everyone heads off to somewhere with fast-acting biometric scanners. On the way there though, this big chunky Demogorgon boy intercepts them, splitting up the group and catching us up to those pointless flash-forwards from earlier. Cernan escapes from that Williams mimic, but Isley can't fight back the fake Stafford because of her injury in hydroponics. Stafford then unleashes a bunch of hands from his mouth that spit some acid on her face, dissolving all of her hard work maintaining a perfect skincare routine. Cernan makes his way back to the group without a scratch, and the same goes for Cooper and Anders. Cooper then decides she's tired of all these fake friends and won't trust anyone until they've gone through the scanner, holding everybody at gunpoint. So, one awkwardly tense elevator ride later, the team get themselves scanned and confirmed human, starting with Anders, and then Young, and then Williams. Honestly, I don't see why they didn't just take Williams here in the first place rather than have him sit in that big room for a long time, but whatever, is what it is. Next up, of course, is Cernan, but things take an interesting turn when another Cernan shows up right when he's about to be tested. Cooper has a hard time figuring out who is who, so she takes a gamble and hopes for the best, popping the newcomer who actually turns out to be the real Cernan. Secret's out now, so he contorts his body and morphs into this big lumpy unit, backhanding Cooper like she's a 1960s housewife, picking her up with one hand and brutally snapping her neck. It's not too late for Young though, as she goes for the gun and never mind. The big chunky geezer then morphs back into Cernan, grabbing the gun for himself and taking out the last of the team. First it's Williams, and then Anders, who actually thinks he has a chance by running away, bless her. All of this brings us to the premature death spiral ending. We miss a whole entire scene where they title drop Directive 8020 explaining what it actually is. Also, nobody walks on Tau City F to take in those stunning views, and there's absolutely no big plot twist that completely changes everything. That's all for now though. Huge thank you for watching, as it truly means a lot. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, comment something spicy for the algorithm, subscribe if you're new, all that YouTube bullshit, and I'll be back in the next one.